Hey guys, first regardsman here. I'd like to be talking about the new weekly hard stratagem in Space Marine 2 for week 8. Now, this week is pretty difficult for a lot of players. Basically, we have a new hard weekly here on Inferno. The battlefield conditions are point blank. Range damage at less than 10 meters is increased by 75%. Combat mastery, melee, or range damage increases with the bonus switching every 15 seconds. Depleted armor, which says no armor boosts are available and squad members only have one armor segment. And of course, suboptimal state, maximum health is reduced by 66%. So point blank and combat mastery are quite huge benefits for our actual, range damage and stuff like that. Now, depleted armor and suboptimal state do make it so you basically get damage nuked off of like a single burst from a Karn effects and things like that. But there are some ways to circumvent this, at least slightly. Now, first of all, the way I soloed this mission was using the Vanguard class. Now, Vanguard is very powerful on this operation, or at least the stratagem here, because first of all, Melt a Rifle will drip feed you armor, things like Trick Shot, killing 5 enemies with 1 shot, restores an armor segment, cooldown is 30 seconds. On top of that, you are benefiting from like a 85% damage buff on this thing with perks like Battlefield Awareness on top of the point blank modifier. And when Combat Mastery is active, and if you're unaware what Combat Mastery is because you forgot already, like I do sometimes, it is basically just the melee or range damage increases with the bonus switching every 15 seconds. This buff is enormous. It will make your secondary heavy bolt pistol do tremendous damage. It will up your melter rifle damage even further beyond the point blank. You can do serious chunks to bosses and stuff like that. So actually way better than it sounds. Combat Mastery is one of the most beneficial stratagem modifiers in the entire game. It really helps out any class in this game, but especially Vanguard with this melter rifle. Now, you may be wondering, oh, I'm going to take Amaziel because Amaziel is just a very powerful perk. Now, on this modifier, because of suboptimal state, reducing your HP by 66%, it's not as powerful as, say, Inner Fire, in my opinion, for teams, though there is a use case scenario for this, which is basically, if you go down and you get back up and you're at that 33% HP in Space Marine 2, the lower HP you are on, and if you have like a mortal wound or something, you will basically have a significantly up chance to find a stim in a box, and finding a stim in a box is pretty easy in this game anyways. And let's say, like, you get downed, you get up, you're on a mortal wound, you got 33% HP, you find a stim in the box, you kill one extremist, well, now you can use your stim to just heal your mortal wounds. So that's pretty beneficial there. But I would still say Inner Fire is better overall because a 15% CDR reduction on every single Majora's kill is very powerful, especially if you have something like a Bulwark on your team or like an Assault with his ground pound. These are pretty strong options because the big issue here is that in this stratagem, you don't want to lose your armor basically ever. Anything that drip feeds you armor in Space Marine 2 is already very powerful, but the reason Vanguard's quite strong for this is because he has perks like Launch Restoration, using the grapnel launcher restores an armor segment, and perks like Restoration, killing 7 enemies in rapid succession restores 1 armor segment, cooldown is 15 seconds. These perks are already very strong in Space Marine 2, but really in this stratagem especially, having your armor up constantly and drip fed back to you will simply save your life. Now, I did take a power axe to this as well, because the fencing power axe, first of all, dealing with my Norris with block is not impossible, but this is simply safer versus them. And usually this downside of like having no fencing parry on the Minoris doesn't matter too much with block weapons, but in this stratagem modifier, having the fencing just makes it significantly easier, so I would pick this up. And there are also perks in this tree, stuff like Patient Stance. While in Power Stance, you do not lose contested health, that will save your life as well. This one will reduce damage while you're like gun striking for things like Bramble. Like say you're standing in Bramble, you have to gun strike a guy and you're using Patient Stance, it'll prevent you from losing that HP, which would suck ass. Now, there is a bit of an unfortunate thing here with the perk Restoration, killing 7 enemies in rapid succession restores an armor segment, cooldown is 20 seconds. If you double trigger this perk on top of your Restoration perk here in the Prestige perk tree, you don't get like the second armor because we do have depleted armor on the stratagem. So unfortunately there, you don't really get that extra benefit of the Restoration you usually would on the Power Axe, but I still think the Fencing Power Axe is worth using because not only does this one benefit from the Combat Mastery on the Power Wave on top of things like bonus gun strike damage, but getting those free parries and that free gun strike damage and those free executes off of things like Zone of Impact and Tactical Prowess is just very beneficial to us, which is why I prefer this class. Now, another class that's very strong on here is Bulwark. Bulwark is always powerful, but having any CDR, or excuse me, any type of armor regen like Focus Restoration is also very strong for your team. And even though the Bulwark has a 66% reduced HP on this modifier like everybody else, he has a 30% increased starting HP and a ton of damage reduction perks. So he's really not too bad for this. The hardest part of this whole mission is going to be the boss spawns per usual, but you can tank a bit more than most people. I would say I would take like the Intimidating Aura perk because Intimidating Aura is pretty OP in this game anyways, but things like Defensive Mastery, removing an Extremis or Majoris instantaneously in a boss fight is also pretty useful, and being able to give armor back to your entire team every 30 seconds is invaluable because once again, when your armor is gone in suboptimal state, that is when your HP will just vanish into thin air because any amount of armor remaining in Space Marine 2 will reduce all incoming melee damage to 0, even from bosses. The only thing you really have to worry about while you have armor up is like range attacks, which does suck, but it's better than nothing. Now, another class that's quite strong on this is the Assault class. First of all, Assault is very powerful versus Tyranids in general. Things like Zealous Blow, which read a ground pound kill restores jump packs charged by 10%. This will simply allow you to cycle over and over into Minoris hordes, and this is Inferno, and the finale portion of this map is just like a ton of Minoris swarms. And one more thing on top of the Minoris swarms at the end of Inferno is that a boss can spawn in the Inferno map at the very end portion with all those Minoris spawns, and if you have like 50 bajillion Minoris on top of a boss, you can Zealous Blow into him over and over and over with Smiting Angel and Pride and Duty. This one giving you 25% more damage on your ground pound after a finisher. This one giving you a 25% damage buff flat, so pretty useful there, and being able to get all the free damage off of Zealous Blow into a horde is kind of invaluable. And also on top of all of this, I once again take a Fencing Power Axe, because Fencing Power Axe is quite powerful in this class as well, because once again you get all the Gunstrike damage, and he already has benefits to his Gunstrike like proven efficiency, and on top of all of this, you can take the perk Active Attrition, which reads, enemies hit by melee attacks take 15% more damage for 3 seconds. This one will actually apply a debuff to the enemy for your entire team, so like any boss hit by you will take 15% more damage total from like all sources, including Gunstrikes, I believe, which is quite powerful. And on top of all of this, the Assault also has armor reinforcement, non-finisher Gunstrikes restore one armor segment, and like we said before, armor reinforcement in this game is OP, and in suboptimal state especially, getting armor back off of every non-finisher Gunstrike will save your life, so a really useful option there. Now, another class that I talk about in pretty much every stratagem when he doesn't have like a Bleary version is the Tactical. Now, Tactical's Precise Calibration and Concentrated Fire combo is the best boss nuking tool in the entire game for a coordinated team. Basically, this one reads, enemies marked by Auspex Scan take an additional 75% damage, but Auspex Scan's radius is reduced by 25%. This combined with the perk here, Concentrated Fire, Auspex Scan zone lasts 6% longer, and enemies marked by Auspex Scan take an additional 120% damage, but they lose the mark when they leave the scanned area. These will make it so you just basically one turn a boss. Now, in absolute difficulty, which stratagems are basically based on for the hard strats, you can find a maximum of 2 bosses per mission. So in this map, you could find 2 Carnifexes, or like 1 Carnifex or a Neurothrope, or 2 Neurothropes. Either way, nuking those down a single turn is very beneficial. But one other thing you should pay attention to is that there are basically extremis below 50% HP on a boss. So if you lower a boss to 50% HP in absolute difficulty, a bunch of reinforcements will come out. It's not going to necessarily be extremis, but it could be, and extremis are usually the biggest problem because getting stun locked by a Ravener with suboptimal state and armor malfunction is, let's just say, horrendous, or excuse me, this is depleted armor. So depleted armor plus suboptimal state for a Ravener or a Lictor combo will just nuke you down in like 1 second. Also, things like Carnifex Artillery can nuke you down in 1 second. So you do have to be pretty coordinated, because if you do happen to trigger the boss to that 50% reinforcement limit, you might just get completely cooked by a double reinforcement spawn. If you don't kill the boss off that Auspex, you're going to have like a 30% HP boss left that might just kill your whole team. Just keep that in mind. But that being said, this is still one of the best combos in the entire game. And of course, up here, the perk Secure Stockpile, equipment charge by 1 for all squad members, cooldown at 60 seconds. This is one of the most busted team perks in the entire game as well, and giving back 60-second melt-a-bombs, crack grenades, shock grenades, and frags is simply top tier in Space Marine 2 because of how much value it generates. Now, the final class I want to talk about here is Heavy. Heavy with the Multi-Melta on top of Point Blank is kind of OP. The Multi-Melta, first of all, the Multi-Melta also has a trick shot perk, just like the standard melter rifle does, which says killing 5 enemies with 1 shot, which armor segment cooldown is 30 seconds. But on top of that, there is a mechanic with the multi-melta where you can basically fire off like triple shots in a row, often triggering your executioner's fire. After you finish, your fire rate increases by 25% for 5 seconds. The shot cooldown on the multi-melta is separate for the heavy stance and the hip fire, so basically if you enter heavy stance, fire a shot, and immediately go out of heavy stance, you'll get another shot instantaneously. Really beneficial with point blank because you have a 75% range damage buff, though I will say you will be missing like 30% damage off of things like heavy might that you would usually have in the heavy stance, but to be honest, it doesn't matter too much. So multi-melt I think is king here. Some people might like pyre cannon for boss melting, but overall, the stagger of this really keeps the lictors and stuff like that off your back, and getting stun locked on the heavy is a pretty brutal problem, and with suboptimal state, it just means you're going to die. Now, as far as other perks I would take with him, I would always take the perk Fortitude, health increases by 30%, and the perk down here, Conviction. When your armor is fully depleted, you take 25% less health damage for 10 seconds. These two perks combined make you incredibly tanky. Even on suboptimal state, you will simply survive things that would otherwise nuke you down, so I would still pick these up. Obviously, it's not as strong as it usually is, but suboptimal state is a pretty brutal modifier. This one will still help you. And of course, the perk up here, Restoration. Killing 7 enemies in rapid succession restores an armor segment. Cooldown is 15 seconds. Just like Vanguard, any armor restored in this game is top tier. So this perk combined with Kill Shot, or excuse me, the other perk here, Trick Shot, will give you back multiple, avenues of armor. Excuse me, give you back multiple segments of armor on separate cooldowns, which is quite useful. So I really would take multi-melt up to this. And that's pretty much all there is for like pretty basic meta setups for these classes. Multi-melt is pretty standard. Stagger is OP. Vanguard melt is pretty standard. Stagger is OP. Even the melter rifle on tactical is pretty incredible. Now I do want to mention one more thing on the melter rifle is the range variant in patch 9.0 did get a buff to the damage fall off it has, so basically now it has a way better damage fall off, and the ammo economy on this for all classes is pretty decent because of perks like Decisive Reload that read performing a finisher on Majora's level or higher enemy with this weapon restores ammo by 1, and also tactical just has Emperor's Vengeance, so we basically has infinite ammo anyways. But that's pretty much all there is for this one, guys. This one really isn't too bad. It may seem a lot harder than it actually is, but once you get rid of the boss spawns, it is quite easy, and Inferno is not too bad of a map anyways, so hopefully this guide helped. If you like content like this, subscribe for more, and as always, thanks for watching. Bye. And also, since I completely forgot about the sniper class in the original recording, I wanted to mention that for this stratagem, I would probably just take a bolt carbine sniper because, first of all, bolt carbine already has a tremendous headshot multiplier at close range on like a normal absolute operation, but on this stratagem with point blank and combat mastery, you will basically pop a head in like 2 seconds at close range. Really powerful option. And I also want to mention the signature perk over here, Emergency Override. When you receive lethal damage, a camo cloak automatically activates without spending a charge, and you become invulnerable for 5 seconds. Cooldown is 180 seconds. This might save your operation. If you do have like a tactical secure stockpile, you really don't need Pattern of Excellence. And now I would still take Purification on this as well, which reads manually activating camo cloak removes negative status effects, restores all contested health, because even though on suboptimal state you have such a low HP, you will still occasionally get a white bar, and having to heal it will just save you some sims and stuff like that. So I want to mention that here. Now for the prestige perk tree, I would take Emperor's Grace for the invulnerability for 2 seconds on camo cloak. This perk is simply incredible. Versatile precision enables your ammo economy, even though the ammo economy isn't too bad in this class anyways with the bolt carbine. And conviction here, when your armor is fully depleted, you take 25% less health damage for 15 seconds. This one will also save your life because a 25% health damage reduction, even with like, 66% reduced HP, is still really strong. Unfortunately, the sniper does not have any type of HP increase outside like, damage reduction, so this might save your life here, though I would probably stack it on top of things like persistence for a 45% health damage reduction total. If you want to take lingering concealment, you can definitely do that. I just wanted to mention that on the sniper class because some people might ask me later, though to be honest, I probably wouldn't take the sniper class to this over things like Vanguard, Bulwark, Heavy, Assault, and Tactical. If you want to take him, you certainly can. The stratagem isn't so hard, you can't play whatever you want. If you want to play sniper, that's how I would do it, and that's pretty much all there is for this one.